The town of Poole on the south coast of England is no stranger to the world of powerboat racing. Races have been held here for many years. This year is no exception, for 1994 sees the hosting of the opening round of the Class 1 European Championship, the Needles Trophy, named after the string of rocks off the end of the Isle of Wight, which forms the easterly end of this racecourse. The Solent and the waters around the racecourse very famous for yachting, but for powerboat racing as well. This is England in all its seaside glory, and the crowds have come here to witness a tremendous battle that will take place not just in Class 1, but in Classes 2 and 3 as well. For over 30 boats have been entered here this weekend. '86 saw Angelo Spelter in a monohull win this race. A catamaran is more likely, although the weather conditions here today are rough, not favouring the catamaran style of hull. British teams have entered Shockwave, a monohull, and of course, the weather conditions for the race itself, which happens tomorrow, may differ overnight from the very choppy conditions offshore at the moment. Roger Fletcher has entered Shockwave number 111, a Don Shed design of hull which this year has new C-Tech diesel engines in it, making it highly competitive compared to last year. The Needles Trophy could see them perhaps with a British victory in their hands. The crowds in a special walk area down one side of the pits where the boats are situated once more on Poole Quay right in the town centre, providing a great opportunity for members of the public to have a really close-up look at these spectacular boats. A new class in 1994 sees historic boats being run once more. This, one of the traditional style of monohulls, a Bertram hull powered by Lamborghini engines. But Capper Ferry in number 41 has been European champion before. He desperately wants to be so again. He's got some tough competition, particularly from Antonio Giuffredi, who has some special aerodynamic devices fitted to the front of his boat. Britain sees Richard Carr returning to the racing waters once more with his driver Peter Dredge in a totally new Cunningham hull. DiMarco from Italy, who has contested very effectively in the past in the famous Jack Daniels boat, is here this weekend too. And as always, where there are boats, there's glamour as well. Lamborghini are providing the petrol power this weekend, almost without exception. However, DiMarco is running Italia engines. Lamborghini so closely attached and associated with powerboat racing over the years, the 8-litre V12 block modified for marine racing. One single V12 engine is shoehorned into the back of Richard Carr's new boat. In the past, Carr has been highly competitive in Class 1, running in Cougar hulls. 1994 sees him moving to Cunningham. The outcome of his experiment is yet to be known, but for sure, he's a very aggressive driver.
You're happy to go out in what could be rough and windy conditions?
Yeah, I'm very confident with the boat. I mean, the canopy system is been tested, and it was tested by my engineer, so I know that it works. Yes, the boat is a new boat, and we're getting it ready for next year's Worlds, which are held here in Poole and Bournemouth.
Single-engine Lamborghini configuration is, to my knowledge, fairly unusual for a Class 2 boat. How's it proved? You've obviously started from scratch with a concept.
A lot of people have tried single-engine Class 2 boats and have failed. Pioneers often get their arrows in the back, but I'm trying again. And I haven't got an arrow in my back yet, but it's proving difficult, to say the least. I mean, the boat now is running just short of 100 miles an hour, and we've still got a long way to go with the rev range. So I think that we may prove a lot of people who failed in the past wrong, but time will tell.
Other classes of boat, this is a Swedish design of boat, proved highly competitive in the Guernsey World Championships. 4 litres of power, can be unstable in rough waters. The American Skater Company have achieved considerable fame in the last 3 years with their spectacular racing hulls, particularly in Class 1. American Charles Burnett III is here with this new bright yellow racing hull. David and Chris Allenby will be racing Assegai 4, a Donoghue Hicks design of hull some 36 feet in length. But major problems for the Italians as they begin to run aground, one after another, not realizing that the tide has gone out and created the shallows in the center of the pits area. DiMarco and Panatta grounded in the middle of Poole Harbour. The damage to the propellers there for all to see. The razor-sharp edges roughened off on the sand from the bottom of Poole Harbour, and the team with a headache to resolve. Gianpaolo Aloigi on the left, Enrico DiMarco on the right look across the quay at the damaged propellers on the back of their boat. In the meantime, Panatta and Carlo Bodega have been pulled off the rough sand, and they too are being brought back to port. Enrico DiMarco's crew chief inspecting the damage to the edge of those propellers. Many thousands of dollars go into the preparation of each of these racing propellers. It's a disaster for the team, damage occurring before they've even had a chance to go out and test. Down in the waters, the propellers on the back of Panatta's boat. Nobody at this stage knows what damage has occurred down there, and they won't do until it's craned out of the water. Panatta climbs back up onto the quay, and we take this opportunity to talk to him about this big problem.
Well, first, Adriano, I must ask you, what happened with the boat out here?
We just come back, and I thought that the last one was okay to go through and go around with the boat, but it's very low. I mean, it's.
Did you feel it very quickly when it stopped?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a big problem. Maybe one propeller. Maybe. I hope not. The 4 Italian boats, they're about the same. It depends on the sea, depends on the conditions, because if the sea is flat, I think that Gioffredi is very fast. With a rough sea, I think the two American boats, the Autolarm, GT Autolarm and Capo Ferri, they're good. If it's so, I can do good race. But you know, it's always difficult because all the boats this year, they are very close.
Close competition, whether petrol or diesel driven, because it's back to the old battle again, a fight to try and decide who is supreme in their choice of form of power. SeaTech have become highly competitive alongside Isotta Fraschini. Panatta has chosen to run with Lamborghini power. The high scream of the petrol-driven engines, very distinctive, not only in the pits, but particularly out offshore. But while former tennis star Panatta and Enrico DiMarco may have problems, they pale into insignificance compared to those of Antonio Gioffredi. For Gioffredi has also gone aground and blown both his SeaTech diesel engines. And this is Aloigi and DiMarco going aground quite simply right in front of the pits. Gioffredi's grounding was much more severe, stressing the engines because the propellers were restricted on the bottom. Capoferri then listening to his crew chief, his son Massimo leaning over the cockpit as they take final preparations from the test sessions. The 2 Lamborghinis shoehorned into the back of the boat, immaculate preparation, so essential if you stand any chance of winning. As Marco Capoferri has said before, his greatest enemy is the tiniest mechanical failure.
We needed some more speed on the flat, and with the Mercruisers there is no way, because in my opinion that engine has reached the maximum development possible, while with the Lamborghini 12 cylinders and 4 valves you can have something more. In fact, we worked very hard during the winter and beginning of the season to set up the boat for the new engines. And last race we did in Viareggio, the boat was really very fast.
You've done some testing here today. Are you happy with what you've done?
Yes, I like the sea conditions. I hope they don't change. It's quite rough out there and windy. If it stays like this, it's going to be fun.
Tell me about your thinking your philosophy between the European Championship and the World Championship for Class 1? Because you have very definitely placed yourself with the European Championship.
The reason is very simple. I manage this team as I should manage my company, which means that at the end of the year there must be a balance, and the World Championship is very expensive. And in the same time, the publicity you can offer to the sponsors from the World Championship is practically zero. So it's nonsense, in my opinion.
Marco Capaferri with strong opinions. The engines being warmed up and tested by the mechanics. This is Richard Carr's new Lethal Menace out on the water. Very unusual looking boat with that long single canopy, specially designed to lift hydraulically from the back, allowing easy access to both driver and throttle man. Panatta's crew chief here has discovered a misfire on one of the cylinders in just one of the V12 Lamborghini engines. Everything has to be as near perfect as possible before these boats go out to race. Panatta's boat, some 40 foot in length. You can see the propellers down below the surface of the water there. The boat is steered by the hydraulic movement of those propellers on the ends of the arms in the water. Marco Capaferri doing some final checks inside the cockpit. Visibility has to be extremely good. The screens cleared. Most of the drivers have a special ventilation system to stop humidity building up inside the boat. And you can see that distinctive canopy design there on Richard Carr and Peter Dredge's boat. Designed with safety in mind, and the team have already experienced a full barrel roll of this boat in testing. Very dangerous, very difficult, but in fact, both driver and throttle man were completely protected and unharmed. Final tightening of the belts, the oxygen supply clear there. And this is a new class of boat that's running in the classic Class 1 series. A traditional form of offshore racing. The old Lamborghinis there, before the days of four-valve technology. Much simpler, based in fact on a tractor engine, but highly competitive. Some of the smaller classes going by as they make their way out, ready for the race. One of the 2-litre competitors, a massive difference in power between their boat and that of Panatta's. This is a 2-litre powered boat, Sweet As, driven by Dave Sperling, with Mike Spinks in the back, a 27-foot catamaran. Out goes Panatta then, in that spectacular hull, number 76, or Solar. The race, of course, taking place way, way outside of Poole Harbour, out in Poole Bay. The teams will compete 4 laps, 3 the same and then 1 shorter one at the end of the race. And race day conditions are very different. A remarkable overnight rebuild for both engines in the back of this boat. Patagnani and Giuffredi will be out on the water for the start of the race. A superb achievement for the mechanics, and we understand the Cunningham yard who have assisted in the overnight rebuild. The boats making their way out to the end of Bournemouth Pier, where they mill in preparation for the start of the race. The start boat pulls ahead of them, of course, and everybody else preparing themselves. Enrico Di Marco, Gianpaolo Aloigi there, talking to the crew with a final communication. You can see the crowds all there on the end of Bournemouth Pier. A very colourful sight, traditional British seaside sight, as we wait now for the boats to gather and make their run up as they head from west to east, shadowing the coastline, slowly circling, keeping the engines warm. This is not going to be monohull racing weather. The waters, in contrast to yesterday, flat calm. It will suit Antonio Giuffredi and Paolo Patagnani very well indeed. They're likely to be extremely competitive today, but will the overnight repairs hold? Kappa Ferry, the 92 European Class 1 champion, lost the title last year to Andreas Ove Ugland, determined to take it back from the Norwegian this year. As the start boat starts to build up speed, you can see the yellow flag on the right-hand side raised aloft by the start boat to bring everybody else into line. No one must pass the start boat until the yellow flag is dropped and the green flag raised to announce that the race is safely underway. A long run up, gradual build up with speed, and look at the performance there of Antonio Giuffredi as he blasts through the middle of the field, taking everybody else by surprise as they pick up speed, unusual for a diesel-powered boat with a heavier fuel load. The petrol-powered boats normally faster at the outset of the race, but Antonio Giuffredi surprising everybody, getting a jump on the start. The SeaTech diesels obviously performing extremely well at this stage as they head away and head east, shadowing the coastline and down towards the Needles. One turn to the right, out towards the Needles, and then a sharp turn back towards the headland on the other side of the bay. Giuffredi, who only 3 years ago was running in the World Championship with Adriano Panatta. Panatta has been racing in Class 1 for 10 years, and Giuffredi brought him close into the World Championship status. But this is the fight for the lead then. In the foreground, Marco Cappaferri and his son Massimo in the Lamborghini-powered Caffarel. In the distance, Antonio Giuffredi trying to keep up speed to stay in first place, but conscious all the time in the back of his mind, no doubt, that nagging fear that the overnight repairs may fail. The distinctive and recognizable scream of those two V12 Lamborghini engines, 16 litres of power, tremendous resources of power here for Cappaferri. The skater hull designed in America has become very, very popular in World and European Championship racing. The low-slung capsules, one of the hallmarks of this design of boat, aerodynamically very efficient. Mercruiser outdrives. And still, Cappaferri shadowing Giuffredi, keeping him within sight all the time. Down towards us and underneath the helicopter. A spectacular sight, the Class 1 boats. And this is Panatta, who's back in third place at the moment. The water conditions should suit this boat. A short design of hull, ideally suited to calm water racing. You can see Carlo Bodega there. He has navigational aids to help him find his way around the course. And that looks very much as if Richard Carr's boat has pulled off and been taken into tow by one of the rescue boats. A desperate disappointment for the British driver as Panatta roars away and back towards the headland at the end of his first lap. The big scoops on the back forcing the air down into the inlets of those Lamborghini engines. Panatta, former tennis star turned powerboat driver of remarkable skill. Enrico Di Marco and Gianpaolo Aloigi. Different types of engines. Still the Mercruiser outdrives there, you can see in the water. Massive propellers cutting through the surface. Back in fourth place at the moment, Di Marco. He's chasing Panatta, but up ahead of Panatta is this tremendous fight for the first round of the European Championship between Cappaferri and Giuffredi. So Antonio Giuffredi and Paolo Patignani fighting it out then for the lead in this race. A constant challenge between them and Marco and Massimo Capaferri. Two Italians fighting it out on British waters for this, the opening round of the Class 1 European Championships in 1994. And you can see after 3 laps out of 4 just how close the fight for the lead is. Very valuable championship points at stake here. Capaferri in the lead. Giuffredi dropping back into second place as they head back towards the shoreline. You can see Giuffredi down just below the helicopter here. Capaferri, while he looks further away, is in fact just a few seconds in the lead. Spectator boats dangerously close on the course. One of the problems with offshore racing that still has yet to be resolved, and in fact has caused a World Championship race to be stopped in the middle of the running. So back round the spectator boats, carefully marshalled on a corner there, round the turnbuoy and in towards the calmer waters inshore. Although all over the course today, surprisingly flat, calm racing conditions as the boats pass David and Chris Allenby in Assegai, who appear to be having mechanical problems. They're way down on power for a Class 1 boat. They pass the 4-litre Class 3 boat of Stoneman and Bridges, Maxi Mailing, the Swedish-designed hydrolift, and head once more out to sea, shadowing the coastline initially and then heading into the slightly rougher waters further out to sea in the last lap of the race. Capaferri will be able to see in his mirrors all the time that Giuffredi is there and how close he is. Giuffredi closing for the lead once more. An attack as they're coming onto the final lap now, as Giuffredi makes a determined effort to recapture the lead, a situation that he took right at the outset of this race. Side-by-side racing, Class 1 offshore style, spectacular at over 100 miles per hour as these two giant catamarans fight it out here in Poole Bay. Whoever wins this race will capture 400 points. 4 rounds of the championship in total, 2 in the United Kingdom, 2 in Italy. The championship likely to expand next year and take in more countries. And if this kind of racing is anything to go by, the crowds have some spectacular things to watch as Capaferri recaptures the lead from Giuffredi once more. DiMarco has moved up into 3rd place. Panatta has pulled off the course, either with mechanical failure or because certainly he is reported as having missed a turnbuoy. So Enrico DiMarco then up into 3rd place. He'll be pleased with this, although his racing speed is way down on 1st and 2nd places. Shockwaves out of the running today. These conditions just do not suit the monohulls, but they most certainly suit the catamarans, as you can see, and problems for Giuffredi. A huge amount of black diesel oil on the deck of the boat there, the left-hand engine, obviously they're having problems with. Diesel is often used to cool an ailing engine in offshore racing by allowing more fuel to run out through the engines than would normally be. But certainly problems for Giuffredi. He's still in the hunt though, but Capaferri in number 41 heading towards Bournemouth Pier and the checkered flag to capture the first of the 4 rounds of the European Championship, and fast enough, look, to lap Enrico DiMarco, who's in 3rd place. So Capaferri has completely lapped Enrico DiMarco in number 23, GT Auto Alarms. A huge difference in racing speed between those two skater hulls. Almost identical in design, but massively different in racing speed. So we follow finally down towards the coastline. Giuffredi, who will be maintaining a very fine balance here today between maintaining race speed and keeping his 2nd place and the 300 points that go with it, not stressing the engines any more than he has to, but at the same time not giving in to 3rd place man DiMarco by causing a mechanical failure and allowing him to inherit 2nd place. A long sweeping turn, but Capaferri has gone over the line. Massimo on the right there standing up. The safety canopies flipped open to allow much needed fresh air to be forced inside the canopies. But what a battle for 1st place. There we have Marco Capaferri and his son Massimo inspecting their propellers. The crowd's looking on as the boats are craned in, we prepare for the presentation. The drivers all comparing notes. Giuffredi in the background, what a great day for him. DeMarco on our right. Marco Capoferri on the right there. And the crowd's all standing around, waiting now for the presentation. Champagne, laurels, and a great celebration at the beginning of the European Championship for 1994. So that's it here in Poole, 400 points to Capoferri. The next race next week on Powerboat World is the famous Cowes Torquay Cowes Classic. Earlier this year, we spoke to the Cowes Torquay organizer, Tim Powell, to get an insight onto how the race was formed.
Really an American called Sam Griffiths started a race from Miami to Nassau back in 1960. And a gentleman called Sir Max Aitken, who owned at that stage the Daily Express newspaper in England, saw the race, liked it, and in 1961 started the first Cowes Torquay Cowes international offshore powerboat race. And since then, every year we have had a race from Cowes to Torquay and back. So this year will be our 34th consecutive race from Cowes to Torquay. No other race in the world has run on the same date for 34 consecutive years, so it is quite important.
Things could be very different in Cowes to the race in Poole. Rough waters may suit a monohull more than a catamaran, which is going to put Capoferri's championship chances very much in question. And Fletcher in Shockwave could come to the fore.